Welcome to BL Hub. If you're a lover of boys' love stories or you do kick your legs while watching two men kissing, then you are at the right place. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share before we dive into this story. Thank you.
The first time I saw him, he was sitting alone in the corner of the grand ballroom, ignored by everyone. The Liang Group's annual gala was a spectacle of wealth and power, chandeliers dripping light, champagne towers, and laughter that echoed off marble walls. At the center stood Liang Vincent, the alpha CEO whose reputation preceded him like a storm. Tall, commanding, with sharp features and eyes that could freeze a room. He was surrounded by investors, board members, and socialites hanging on his every word. And then there was his son, Liang Vito, 5 years old, mute since birth. He sat on a cushioned chair at a small side table, legs dangling, dressed in a miniature tuxedo that made him look even more fragile. A nanny hovered nearby but kept her distance, scrolling on her phone. No one else approached the boy. Not his father. Not the aunts and uncles chatting nearby. Not the staff refilling glasses. It was as if he didn't exist. I didn't know why my eyes kept drifting to him. Maybe because I recognized that kind of quiet isolation. Or maybe because, as the junior sign language interpreter hired for the night, I knew how rare it was for anyone to even try speaking his language. I had been brought in for a handful of deaf international guests, but the job was light. So I watched. Liang Vito's tiny hands rested in his lap. Still waiting. Hoping, maybe, that someone would look his way long enough to understand. I couldn't stand it anymore. I crossed the room, ignoring the curious glances, and crouched in front of his chair so we were eye level. He blinked up at me, big brown eyes framed by dark lashes, guarded and wary. I smiled gently and signed, *Hi. My name is Chin. What's yours? *. His eyes widened. For a long moment he just stared at my hands. Then, slowly, hesitantly, he lifted his own small fingers. Liang Vito. The movements were careful, practiced. Perfect. I grinned. Nice to meet you, Liang Vito. Do you like the party? He glanced around the glittering hall, then back at me. His lips pressed together before he signed. It's loud. And boring, I laughed softly. Same. Want to talk about something more fun? That earned me the tiniest twitch of his mouth. Not quite a smile, but the promise of one. We signed back and forth for nearly half an hour. About his favorite cartoon. About the cake he wasn't allowed to have yet. About how he hated wearing ties. He told me no one in the family really knew sign language well, only the nanny and his tutor. His father tried sometimes, but he was always too busy. Daddy says I'm smart enough to read lips. He signed, fingers slowing. But sometimes I miss things. My chest tightened. You deserve people who make the effort, I signed back. He looked at me for a long second. Then, like the sun breaking through clouds, his face lit up with the brightest, most genuine smile I'd ever seen on a child. My heart flipped. In that moment, something shifted. I didn't know it yet, but that smile would change everything. 3 days later, I got the call. Mr. Chin? This is the Liang residence. Mr. Liang would like to speak with you personally. I thought it was about payment for the gala. It wasn't. Liang Vincent's voice was low and commanding even over the phone. My son hasn't stopped talking about you, signing about you. He smiled. He hasn't done that in months. I want to hire you full-time as his personal interpreter and companion. Salary triple what you made at the agency. Start tomorrow. I should have hesitated. Should have asked why me, a junior interpreter with barely 3 years' experience. But I kept seeing that little boy's smile. So I said yes. The Liang estate was intimidating, vast, cold, impeccably maintained. Staff moved like shadows. Liang Vincent met me in his study the first morning. He stood when I entered, all sharp suit and alpha presence, but there was something strained around his eyes. You made him smile, he said without greeting. He asked for you every day since the gala. Drew pictures of a man with your face signing to him. I swallowed. He's a sweet kid, sir. He's difficult, Liang Vincent said quietly. After his mother died, he withdrew. Doctors say selective mutism on top of being congenitally deaf, but I think it's more. He doesn't trust easily. But he trusts you already. There was no warmth in the words, but there was exhaustion. A father carrying too much alone. I'll do my best, I promised. He nodded. Good. He's waiting in the playroom. Liang Vito launched himself at me the moment I walked in, hugging my legs tightly. His nanny looked shocked. He rarely showed affection like that. You came. He signed rapidly, beaming. I did, I signed back, ruffling his hair. Ready for an adventure today? His smile could have powered the entire mansion. The weeks that followed settled into a new rhythm. Mornings with his tutor, I translated everything flawlessly. Afternoons in the garden or playroom, building block towers, reading picture books, drawing together. Evenings, I stayed later than required because he'd tug my sleeve and sign stay longer. And slowly, something unexpected happened. I started noticing Liang Vincent more. He'd appear silently in doorways, watching us with an expression I couldn't read. Sometimes he'd linger after tucking Vito into bed, asking quiet questions about what we'd done that day. How Vito was feeling. If he'd eaten enough. At first, I thought it was just a busy father checking in. Then one evening, after Vito was asleep, Liang Vincent poured 2 glasses of whiskey in his study and gestured for me to sit. You're good with him, he said, voice low. Better than anyone we've hired before. He's easy to love, I replied honestly. Something flickered in those dark eyes. He smiles now. All the time. Because of you. Heat rose in my cheeks. I just talked to him the way he deserves to be talked to. Liang Vincent studied me over the rim of his glass. The silence stretched, charged. You see him, he said finally. Really see him. Not many people do. The way he looked at me, intense, searching, made my pulse race. I didn't understand it yet, but I felt it. Every day, I came for Vito. But more and more, I found myself hoping Liang Vincent would be there too. Watching. Waiting. And one night, everything began to change. It was storming. Thunder shook the windows. Vito hated storms, came padding into my guest room at midnight. They'd given me quarters on the family floor, clutching his stuffed rabbit. Scared, he signed eyes wide. I pulled him into bed beside me, signing stories until he fell asleep against my side. I must have dozed off too. When I woke hours later, Liang Vincent was standing in the doorway. Moonlight cut across his face. He was in sleep pants and a thin shirt, hair tousled, looking less like the untouchable so and more like a man. Our eyes met. He didn't speak. Just crossed the room quietly, checked Vito's breathing, then looked at me. Thank you, he mouthed. No sign, just silent words I read perfectly. I nodded, heart pounding. He lingered another moment. Then, instead of leaving, he sat carefully on the edge of the bed. Close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. Neither of us moved. The storm raged outside. Inside, something quiet and electric built between us. He reached out, slowly, and brushed a strand of hair from my forehead. His touch lingered. My breath caught. And in that charged silence, with his sleeping son between us and the thunder rolling, I realized I was falling. Not for the boy who first smiled at me, but for the man who'd been watching me bring light back into his world. The morning after the storm, I woke to soft sunlight filtering through the curtains and the weight of Liang Vito still curled against my side, his small hand fisted in my shirt. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. Then I remembered the man who had sat on the edge of the bed, whose fingers had brushed my skin like a question neither of us had dared to ask out loud. I carefully slipped out from under Vito, tucked the blanket around him, and padded to the door. The hallway was empty. No trace of Liang Vincent. Maybe I dreamed it. But when I reached the kitchen for coffee, the housekeeper gave me a knowing smile and said, Mr. Liang left early for the office, but he asked me to tell you breakfast is ready whenever you and the young master wake up. He also said, take the day off if you need it. Take the day off. From a man who, according to every business magazine, hadn't taken a single personal day in 8 years. I didn't know what to make of it. The next few weeks flew by in a blur of routine that somehow felt anything but routine. Vito blossomed. He laughed more, silent, shoulder-shaking laughs that made his whole face glow. He started signing faster, longer sentences, telling me stories he made up about dragons who couldn't speak but could fly higher than anyone. He drew pictures of the three of us. Him in the middle, holding my hand with one tiny fist and his father's with the other. And Leong Vincent was everywhere. He came home earlier. Cancelled late meetings. Appeared in the playroom with excuses so thin they were almost comical. I need to review these documents, he'd say, spreading quarterly reports across the floor while Vito built block towers around him. Or, I thought we could have dinner together tonight, which somehow always turned into the three of us at the big dining table, Vito signing excitedly while I translated and Leong Vincent watched us with that unreadable intensity. He started learning sign language properly. The first time I caught him practicing in his study, fingers clumsy but determined, repeating basic phrases from the beginner book I'd left out, I froze in the doorway. He looked up, caught, and for once the unflappable alphabet flushed. "I'm too slow," he muttered. "You're trying," I signed, then said aloud. "That matters more than speed." His eyes held mine a second longer than necessary. "Show me again?" So I did. Sat beside him on the leather sofa, guiding his hands through the shapes of Vito's name, of thank you, of good night. His fingers were warm, strong, careful. Every time our hands brushed, heat sparked up my arm. Vito noticed too. One evening he signed to me privately, eyes sparkling with mischief, "Daddy looks at you a lot." I pretended not to understand and distracted him with ice cream. But the tension kept building. Late nights became common. After Vito was asleep, Leong Vincent would find me in the library or the kitchen, pour 2 glasses of something, tea, wine, whiskey depending on the day, and we'd talk. About Vito at first. Then about everything else. He told me about his wife, how she'd been the only person who ever challenged him, how her death had hollowed him out, how he'd thrown himself into the company because grief was easier to manage than guilt. I told him about growing up poor, about discovering sign language through a deaf neighbor kid, about choosing this career because silence had taught me more about people than words ever could. The conversations stretched longer. The spaces between us grew smaller. One night, 2 months after I'd started, we were in his study again. Rain pattered against the windows. Gentle this time, not stormy. Vito had been asleep for hours. Leong Vincent leaned back in his chair, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking exhausted from a hostile takeover bid that had dominated the news all week. "You should rest," I signed, then spoke softly. "You look tired." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "I don't sleep much anymore." I hesitated, then moved closer. "You carry too much alone." His gaze sharpened. "And you think you can help carry it?" "I think," I said carefully, "that no one should have to carry everything by themselves." Silence stretched. The rain whispered. Then he reached out, not fast, giving me every chance to pull away, and cupped my cheek with one large hand. His thumb brushed my skin, slow, reverent. My heart thundered. "Chin," he said, voice rough. "I don't know what this is. But I know I've been waiting for it since the night you made my son smile." I couldn't breathe. I turned my face into his palm, just slightly, and closed my eyes. When I opened them again, he was closer. So close I could see the flecks of gold in his dark irises, smell the faint cedar of his cologne. He waited. Alpha strength coiled tight, held back by sheer will. I made the choice. I rose on my toes and pressed my lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, testing, almost fragile. Then his hand slid to the back of my neck, fingers threading into my hair, and he deepened it. Slow, deliberate, like he was memorizing every second. Warmth exploded through me. His mouth was firm, tasting faintly of whiskey and something uniquely him. I gripped his shirt, pulling him closer, and he made a low sound in his throat that sent shivers down my spine. We kissed until my lungs burned and the world narrowed to just this, just us. When we finally parted, foreheads resting together, both breathing hard, he whispered against my lips, "Again." I answered by kissing him once more, softer this time, pouring everything I couldn't say into it. After that, stolen moments became our secret language. A brush of fingers in the hallway when no one was looking. A lingering glance across the dinner table. Late nights in his study where conversation dissolved into kisses that grew hungrier each time, though we always stopped before going too far. Vito's room was only down the hall, and neither of us was ready to risk being caught. But the feelings didn't stay quiet. Vito started asking questions. Why does Daddy smile when you're here? Why do you look at each other like in the movies? Kids see everything. One afternoon, Vito tugged me to the garden and signed with deadly seriousness. I want you to stay forever. Be my other daddy. My heart cracked open. I knelt, signing carefully. I care about you and your father very much. But we have to be patient, okay? He nodded solemnly, then hugged me tight. That same evening, Leon Vincent called me into his office after Vito was in bed. He looked nervous, actually nervous, which was so unlike him I almost smiled. I've been thinking, he started, then stopped. Cleared his throat. About us. About Vito. I waited. I don't want to hide this anymore. Not from him. He already knows something's different. He's happy when we're together. Happier than I've ever seen him. He stepped closer, took my hands in his. I want you here. Not as an employee. As mine. As part of this family. If you want that. My throat closed. I've wanted that since the night of the storm, I admitted. Relief flooded his face. He pulled me into his arms, holding me like I was something precious. Then stay, he murmured into my hair. Stay. I did. The next morning, over breakfast, Leon Vincent told Vito, awkwardly, signing with the limited vocabulary he had, while I translated smoothly. Chin is going to live with us now. Not just work here. Special to me. To both of us, Vito stared for 3 full seconds. Then he launched out of his chair, ran around the table, and threw his arms around both of us at once, grinning so wide I thought his face might split. Family he signed over and over. Family. Family, Leon Vincent's eyes were suspiciously bright. He pressed a kiss to Vito's forehead, then looked at me over the boy's head. We were a family now. But nothing this good ever stayed simple. A week later, the first crack appeared. Leon Vincent's mother, Vito's grandmother, arrived unannounced from Shanghai. She swept into the house like a cold wind, designer heels clicking, eyes missing nothing. I was in the playroom with Vito when she appeared in the doorway. Who is this? She demanded in crisp Mandarin. Leon Vincent appeared behind her quickly. Mother, this is Chen. Vito's interpreter. Her gaze raked over me. The one who lives here now? Silence fell. Vito shrank against my side. Leon Vincent's jaw tightened. Yes. And more than that. She arched a perfect brow. We need to talk. Privately. I took Vito upstairs, heart pounding. Through the closed study door, I could hear raised voices, hers sharp and cutting, his low and controlled. Later, when Vito was asleep, Leon Vincent found me in the library. He looked drained. She doesn't approve, he said quietly. Thinks it's inappropriate. A distraction. Bad for the company image. I swallowed. And what do you think? He crossed the room in 3 strides, cupped my face in both hands. I think I've spent years doing what was expected. And I was miserable. You and Vito, you're what I choose. He kissed me fiercely, like he was proving it to both of us. But as his arms wrapped around me, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of the fight. Because people like Leon Vincent didn't get to choose happiness without the world trying to take it away. The engagement ring on my finger still felt surreal 6 months later. Wedding preparations moved at Leon Vincent's usual speed, decisive, expensive, and flawless. He refused to let the press dictate a quiet ceremony or a long engagement. We've hidden enough, he said one night, tracing the band with his thumb. I want the world to see I'm marrying the man I love. So we planned for spring, a garden wedding on the estate grounds, intimate but unapologetic. Only people who accepted us were invited. The guest list was shorter than expected, but every name on it was real. Vito was obsessed with his role as ring bearer. He practiced daily, marching down the hallway with a pillow tied to his waist, signing "I do it perfect" with fierce determination. Watching him beam in his tiny custom tux melted both of us. Life felt almost too good. Almost. Because empires don't stay calm for long. It started with small leaks. Anonymous sources feeding stories to tabloids. Claims that Liang Vincent's personal choices were affecting company performance. That international partners were hesitant. That certain board members were quietly shopping for allies to force a leadership change. Liang Vincent dismissed most of it as noise. The stock was stable. Profits were up. Public approval ratings, whatever that meant for a CEO, were higher than ever among younger demographics. But then Lin Mei's father, the majority shareholder who had once pushed the arranged engagement, called a private board meeting. No agenda sent in advance. Just a date and time. Liang Vincent attended alone. He came home late, face carved from stone. I was waiting in our bedroom. Yes, ours now. I'd moved into the master suite months ago. What happened? I asked the moment he walked in. He loosened his tie, poured a drink he didn't touch, and finally met my eyes. They're calling for a vote of no confidence. Next week. My stomach plummeted. On what grounds? Loss of investor trust. Unstable personal life. They have letters from 3 conservative conglomerates threatening to pull funding if I remain CEO. He laughed bitterly. All because I'm marrying a man. I crossed to him, took the glass from his hand, set it aside. You built this company from nothing. They can't just. They can try, he cut in. And if they succeed, they'll install someone who'll undo everything we've fought for. Diversity initiatives. Mental health support for employees. The deaf education grants we started in Vito's name. All of it can. He sank onto the edge of the bed, head in his hands. I sat beside him, wrapped my arms around his shoulders. He leaned into me like a man carrying 10 years of weight finally allowing himself to rest. We'll fight it, I said quietly. I don't know if I can win this one, he admitted, voice muffled against my neck. Not without losing something vital. The week that followed was brutal. Liang Vincent worked 18-hour days, meetings, calls, negotiations. He aged visibly, shadows under his eyes, jaw permanently clenched. Vito noticed immediately. Why is Daddy sad? He signed one afternoon, lower lip trembling. I knelt to his level. Asterisk, Daddy has big work problems. But he loves us. That never changes, asterisk. Vito thought hard, then ran to his room. He returned with a drawing, the 3 of us holding hands under a rainbow, hearts everywhere. He marched straight to Liang Vincent's study and taped it to the computer monitor. Liang Vincent found me an hour later, eyes red, holding the drawing like it was made of glass. He thinks rainbows fix everything, he whispered. They fix more than you think, I replied. But even rainbows couldn't stop the vote. The night before the board meeting, Liang Vincent couldn't sleep. We lay tangled in bed, moonlight striping the sheets. I've been thinking, he said into the dark. There's one move left. A nuclear option. I turned to face him. Tell me. I could step down as CEO. Stay on as chairman with controlling shares. Appoint a neutral interim CEO the board trusts. Keep our life intact. Protect Vito from the worst of it. My heart cracked. You'd give up the company you built? For you and Vito? In a heartbeat. I pressed my forehead to his. And spend the rest of your life resenting the people who forced you out? He was quiet too long. No, he said finally. I'd resent myself for not fighting harder. Then we fight, I said firmly. One more time. All in. He kissed me, deep, desperate, like he was drawing courage from my mouth. Together, he murmured. Always. The day of the vote arrived cold and clear. Liang Vincent wore his sharpest suit, the one that made him look untouchable. Vito and I stayed home. He had a mild fever, nothing serious, but enough that I didn't want him in a room full of tension. I watched the live internal stream on my laptop. Liang Vincent had given me access. The boardroom looked like a war zone, 20 faces, half allies, half enemies. The dissenting shareholders spoke first, Lin Mei's father. His voice dripped condescension. We admire Mr. Liang's past achievements. But leadership requires stability. Public perception matters. The recent lifestyle choices have created unnecessary risk. Murmurs of agreement from his side. Then Liang Vincent stood. He didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. 8 years ago, he began, this company was bleeding money. I took over, turned it around, made every one of you richer than you dreamed. I did it by taking risks, by believing in innovation over tradition, by betting on the future. Now you're scared of the future because it includes my family. Let me be clear. My fiancé, Chin, is the reason my son smiles again. He is the reason I remember why I built this empire in the first place, not for stock prices, but for legacy. For a world I want Vito to inherit. If you cannot support a leader who chooses love, family, and authenticity, then you do not belong at this table. Vote however you must. But know this, I will not step down. I will not hide. And if you force me out, I will take my patents, my teams, and my vision and build something bigger elsewhere. Many of you will want to follow. The choice is yours. He sat. Silence rang like a gunshot. Then one by one, hands raised. Not for no confidence. For full support. Even Lin Mei's father abstained, face pale. The vote was unanimous in Liang Vincent's favor. He didn't cheer. Didn't smile. Just nodded once and left the room. He came home early. I met him at the door. Vito was napping, fever-broken. Liang Vincent didn't speak. Just pulled me into his arms and held me so tightly I could feel his heart racing from the adrenaline crash. It's over, he whispered finally. We won. I laughed, half sob, half relief, and kissed him right there in the foyer, hands in his hair, pouring 6 months of fear and hope into it. He kissed me back like a man who'd faced death and chosen life. When we broke apart, breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. No more hiding, he said. No more, I agreed. That night, after Vito woke up and demanded extra cuddles, we tucked him into bed together. He fell asleep between us, one small hand on each of our chests. Liang Vincent looked at me over our son's dark hair. For weeks until the wedding, he said softly. I smiled, counting the days. But happiness has a way of making you forget the world still turns. 2 weeks later, everything almost fell apart again. Not from the board. From something far more personal. Vito's biological aunt, his late mother's sister, filed for custody. She claimed Liang Vincent's unstable lifestyle made the home unfit. That Vito needed a traditional family structure. That being raised by 2 men would confuse him. The papers arrived on a Tuesday. Liang Vincent read them once. Then he put his fist through a wall. I'd never seen him lose control like that. He stood in the wreckage of plaster, chest heaving, eyes wild. They will not take him, he said, voice shaking with rage. I will burn everything before I let them take my son. I walked to him slowly, took his bleeding hand, wrapped it in a towel. We won't let them, I said calmly. But we do this smart. Together. He looked at me, alpha fury barely leashed. Marry me tomorrow, he said suddenly. I blinked. What? Civil ceremony. Quiet. Just us and Vito. Make it legal now. Stronger standing in court. My heart pounded. Yes, I said instantly. Tomorrow. He kissed me, hard, possessive, grateful. The next morning, we drove to the registry office. Vito wore his favorite sweater with dinosaurs. He held both our hands as we signed the papers. When the official pronounced us married, Liang Vincent, cold, powerful young Vincent, cried. Silent tears tracking down his face as he kissed me in front of strangers. Vito jumped up and down signing family forever, over and over. We were legally bound now. Husbands. And no one could take that away. But the custody battle was just beginning. And this time, the enemy wasn't business. It was blood. The custody battle turned our home into a war room. Lawyers came and went at all hours. Files stacked on the dining table. Depositions scheduled. Character witnesses lined up. Every detail of our lives dissected. My background, Liang Vincent's parenting, our relationship, Vito's happiness. The aunt, Zhang Lin, was his late wife's older sister. She'd barely visited when Vito's mother was alive, and not once after the funeral. Now, suddenly she was the champion of traditional values, and maternal influence. Her public statement to the press was polished poison. A child needs stability. A child deserves a mother figure. I'm doing this for my nephew's future. The media ate it up. Headlines screamed, "Fight for deaf boy's future. Aunt versus gay so father. Will young Vincent lose his son?" Stock dipped again. Old whispers resurfaced. Liang Vincent became a machine, cold, focused, terrifyingly efficient. He hired the best family law team in the country, dug into Zhang Lin's finances, spotty, her relationships, unstable, her motives, inheritance, once removed. But courts don't always care about truth. They care about optics. And optics favored a grieving aunt over two men. Vito grew quieter. He stopped practicing his ring-bearer walk. Stopped drawing rainbows. Started having nightmares, waking up crying silently, signing "Don't let her take me." Every time, we held him between us until he fell back asleep. One night, after a particularly brutal day of legal briefings, Liang Vincent stood on the balcony staring at the city lights. I joined him, wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. "We're going to lose," he said flatly. "The judge is conservative." The Guardian ad litem's report leaned toward gender balance in caregiving. They think Vito needs a woman in his life. I leaned against the railing beside him. "Then we give him one." He turned sharply. "What?" "Not Zhang Lin. Someone real. Someone who actually loves him." He stared. "Who?" I took a breath. "My sister. She's a pediatric speech therapist. Specializes in deaf children. Single, stable, adores Vito. She's been begging to move closer since we got engaged." Liang Vincent's eyes narrowed, processing. "You want her to live here? Be part of the household. Not just live here. Adopt a parental role. Legally, if needed. Show the court Vito has a mother figure who chooses us. Who chooses him." He was quiet for a long time. "It feels like cheating the system," he said finally. "It's not cheating," I replied. "It's building the family he already has. May's been his aunt in every way that matters since the day he was born. We just make it official." He looked at me, something fierce and grateful breaking through the exhaustion. "You'd share parenting with your sister? Give her legal rights? For Vito?" "In a heartbeat." He pulled me into his arms, buried his face in my neck. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "You have me anyway." We called May the next morning. She arrived that afternoon, suitcase in hand, eyes red from crying on the plane, but smiling the moment Vito ran to her. "Andy May," he signed, launching himself at her legs. She scooped him up, signed fluently, "I missed you so much, little dragon asterisk," and held him tight. Over dinner, we explained everything. She didn't hesitate. "I'm in," she said simply. "Whatever you need. Move in, co-parent, testify, adopt. Whatever keeps him here with you too. He's my nephew too." Liang Vincent reached across the table, took her hand. "Thank you." The shift was immediate. May moved into the guest wing. She took over bedtime stories, school runs, therapy sessions. Vito blossomed again, laughing at her silly faces, signing rapid-fire stories about his day. We filed amended papers. Household now included a live-in maternal aunt with professional expertise in deaf education. Joint parenting plan. Letters from Vito's doctors, teachers, therapist, all stating he was thriving, securely attached, happy. Zhang Lin's team scrambled. Tried to paint May as conveniently placed. But May was bulletproof, credentials impeccable, affection for Vito documented for years. The judge ordered a new home study. The Guardian ad litem returned. This time, she saw Vito signing animatedly with May about dinosaurs while Liang Vincent cooked dinner and I set the table. Saw him kiss each of us goodnight without fear. Saw bedtime, 3 adults tucking him in, all fluent in his language. Her report changed dramatically. Child exhibits exceptional emotional security. Diverse but cohesive family unit. Strong parental figures of multiple genders. Recommendation: custody remain with father and step-parent, with continued involvement of maternal aunt. Zhang Lin's case crumbled. She requested a settlement meeting. We met in a neutral conference room. Her lawyers looked defeated. She stared at Liang Vincent across the table. "I just wanted what was best for him," she said, voice thin. Liang Vincent's expression was ice. "No. You wanted attention. Money. Relevance. Don't dress it in concern now." Silence. Finally, she signed the withdrawal. Custody dispute over. Permanent. We walked out into sunlight. Liang Vincent stopped on the courthouse steps, tilted his face to the sky, and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for months. I took his hand. May carried Vito on her hip, his arms around her neck. We were whole. The big wedding, the one we'd postponed during the chaos, was rescheduled for early summer. This time, nothing stopped it. The estate garden bloomed, white roses everywhere, lanterns in the trees, a string quartet playing soft classics. Only 80 guests, real friends, supportive family, loyal staff. Vito marched down the aisle with supreme seriousness, pillow balanced perfectly, rings secure. He beamed when he reached us, signed "I did it" to the entire crowd. May walked me down the aisle. She kissed my cheek before placing my hand in Liang Vincent's. He wore traditional black hanfu, I wore white, symbolism intentional. Equals. Partners. The officiant spoke of chosen family, of love that builds bridges, of silence that speaks louder than words. When we exchanged vows, Liang Vincent signed and spoke simultaneously, a skill he'd mastered in secret. "I promise to listen with my hands, my heart, my whole life. To choose you and Vito every day. To build a world where he never feels unseen again. You are my home." I was crying too hard to sign cleanly, so I spoke, knowing he'd read my lips and my soul. "I promise to stand beside you in every storm. To translate not just words, but love. To make sure you both know you are enough. You saved me the day you let me in. I'm never leaving." We kissed, long, deep, unhurried, while guests cheered and Vito jumped up and down signing *kiss. Kiss, enthusiastically. The reception was joy incarnate. Vito danced with May, then with both of us, tiny feet on ours as we swayed. Madame Liang sent a congratulatory flower arrangement. No note, no attendance, but it was progress. Late that night, after guests left and Vito was asleep in May's room, he'd begged for a sleepover with Auntie, Liang Vincent carried me over the threshold of our bedroom. Rose petals on the floor. Candles flickering. He set me down gently, eyes dark with emotion. "Husbands," he whispered, like he was testing the word. "Husbands," I echoed, smiling. He kissed me slowly, neck, jaw, lips, hands reverent, like I was something sacred. We undressed each other with no rush, mapping familiar skin like it was new. Every touch carried gratitude, relief, promise. When we came together, it was quiet, intense, eyes locked, emotion deeper than words or signs could reach. A connection built through fire and now sealed in peace. After, tangled in sheets, he traced my ring. "One more thing," he murmured. I raised a brow. He reached into the nightstand, pulled out adoption papers. Full legal adoption. Me as Vito's second parent. "I had them drawn up months ago," he said softly. "Wanted it to be a surprise when everything was safe." Tears filled my eyes. "Sign them tomorrow?" he asked. I nodded, unable to speak. He kissed my forehead, pulled me close. Outside, summer stars glittered. Inside, our family slept safe under one roof. But happiness, as always, came with one final shadow. 2 weeks later, Vito's doctor called. Routine checkup results. Something unexpected in his hearing tests. A new implant technology, cutting edge, just approved. A chance, not a guarantee but a real chance, that Vito might hear one day. We sat with the specialist, hearts pounding. Risks low. Success rate climbing. But the decision was massive. Did we alter the child we loved exactly as he was? Or give him a choice we never had? We took the information home. Sat Vito down with May. Explained slowly, carefully, in sign. Asterisk, there's an operation. It might let you hear sounds, voices, music. But it's your choice. We love you exactly as you are. Always, asterisk. Vito thought for a long time. Then he signed. Asterisk, I want to hear your voices. Daddies and papas and aunties. Just once. To know what love sounds like. Asterisk. Liang Vincent broke. I held him while he cried silently into my shoulder. We scheduled the surgery for fall. Whatever the outcome, we'd face it together. As always. The night before the procedure, we all piled into our big bed. Vito in the middle, May on one side, Liang Vincent and I on the other. Vito fell asleep signing in his dreams. Liang Vincent whispered across the darkness, whatever tomorrow brings, we won. I squeezed his hand. We had. Against boards and bigots. Against blood and law. Against silence itself. Love had spoken louder. And we were finally, truly listening. The morning of the surgery dawned crisp and golden, early autumn light filtering through the hospital windows. Vito was brave. Braver than any 5-year-old should have to be. He held my hand on one side, Liang Vincent's on the other, and May's sleeve with his free fingers as they wheeled him toward the operating room. His dinosaur gown looked too big on his small frame, but his smile was steady. I'm not scared, he signed one last time before the doors closed. I love you all. Then he was gone. The waiting room felt endless. Liang Vincent paced like a caged tiger, alpha energy barely contained. May knitted a tiny scarf she didn't need, fingers flying to keep calm. I sat staring at the clock, counting minutes like heartbeats. 3 hours. Finally, the surgeon emerged. Everything went perfectly, she said, smiling. The implant is in place. We'll activate it in 4 weeks once the swelling subsides. There's every reason to expect significant hearing gain. Relief crashed over us so hard Liang Vincent had to sit down. We took turns sitting with Vito in recovery. He woke groggy but triumphant, signing weakly. Did it work? Soon, little dragon, May signed back, kissing his forehead. Very soon. The next month was gentle anticipation. Vito healed quickly, no complications, energy returning in waves. We kept life steady, school, playdates, evening stories. Liang Vincent took a full month off work, unheard of, and we spent it as a family. Long walks in the falling leaves. Baking disasters with May. Movie nights with subtitles and cuddles. And every day, Vito asked, how many more days until I hear? We counted down on a big calendar with stickers. Activation day arrived. The audiology center was bright, child-friendly. Vito sat in a soundproof booth, new external processor clipped behind his ear. The audiologist, a kind woman who signed fluently, adjusted settings carefully. We watched through the glass, hearts in our throats. First beep. Vito's eyes widened. Second tone, higher. His mouth fell open. Then the audiologist spoke softly into the microphone. Vito, can you hear me? He whipped around to us, tears already forming. I hear something, he signed frantically. Like waves? Liang Vincent's hand crushed mine. They fine-tuned. Added more frequencies. Then the moment we dreamed of. The audiologist nodded to us. We entered the booth. I knelt first. Hi, buddy, I said aloud, voice shaking. It's Papa. Vito stared at my mouth. Then his face crumpled. He launched into my arms, silent sobs shaking his shoulders, but this time, not from fear. I heard you, he signed against my chest. Your voice is warm. Liang Vincent dropped to his knees beside us. Daddy here, he said clearly, deeply. Vito turned, eyes huge. Daddy's voice is strong, he signed, reaching for him. Like a hug. May went last. Auntie loves you, she said, playful lilt in her tone. Vito giggled, out loud. A small, rusty sound but real. Funny voice, he signed, then tried it himself, a soft that made us all cry harder. We spent hours there, testing words, sounds, songs. Vito's world exploded into noise, the rustle of paper, the click of the door, our laughter. He was exhausted by the end, processor off for a rest, but his smile never faded. On the drive home, he fell asleep in his car seat, head against Liang Vincent's arm. None of us spoke for a long time. Then Liang Vincent whispered, he heard us. I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. He heard love. The years that followed were a quiet kind of magic. Vito grew, tall like his father, gentle like his mother had been. The implant worked better than anyone hoped. He spoke now, voice soft but clear, still signed always, his first language, his pride. School was mainstream with interpreters, then without as he chose. He made friends who learned basic signs just to talk to him. He played piano, said he loved feeling the vibrations and hearing the notes at the same time. Liang Vincent stepped back from daily operations, became chairman, focused on philanthropy. The Liang Foundation funded deaf education across the country, schools, tech, teacher training. Vito cut the ribbon at the first one when he was 10. May stayed. Never left. She met someone, a wonderful woman who fit seamlessly into our chaos, and they married in the same garden years later. Vito was their ring bearer again. And us? We grew too. Arguments, rare, but real. Late nights worrying over teenage moods. Celebrations, graduations, first dates. Vito brought home a sweet boy who signed fluently. Liang Vincent only growled a little. But through everything, we chose each other. Every day. On Vito's 18th birthday, we returned to where it all began. The grand ballroom of the Liang Group headquarters, remodeled now into a multifunctional space. We hosted a charity gala for the foundation. Vito stood at the podium, confident, handsome in his tailored suit. He spoke and signed simultaneously, just like his father had taught him. 18 years ago, he began, voice steady, I was the kid no one saw. Sitting alone at a party just like this one. Then a man crossed the room and spoke my language. He made me smile. He brought my father back to life. He built this family. Papa, Chin, you taught me that being seen is the greatest gift anyone can give. Dad, you taught me strength looks like love, not power. Auntie May, you taught me family is chosen every single day. I stand here able to hear your voices, speak mine, live fully, because you fought for me to have every choice. Thank you. I love you, all three of you, more than words or signs can ever hold. He stepped down to thunderous applause. Straight into our arms. Later, on the balcony overlooking the city, Liang Vincent and I stood alone. Vito was inside dancing with his boyfriend. May laughing with her wife. The night air was cool. Liang Vincent pulled me close. Remember that first gala? He murmured against my temple. How could I forget? I smiled. You were terrifying. He chuckled. And you were brave. Crossing that room. Changing everything. I turned in his arms, looked up at the man who'd become my entire world. We changed each other. He kissed me, slow, deep, familiar in the best way. Still sparks after all these years. When we parted, he rested his forehead against mine. Happy ending? He asked softly. I laughed quietly. No. Happy beginning. Again and again. Inside, music played. Vito's laughter rang out, clear, bright, unafraid. The mute boy who'd been ignored by everyone had grown into a man whose voice, spoken and signed, was heard around the world. And it all started with one person who crossed a room. One person who learned his language. One smile. Our family stood together, unbreakable, chosen, loud in all the ways that mattered. Forever. Thank you for watching, everyone. I also want to hear your thoughts about this story, and as you do so, don't forget to subscribe, like and share for more amazing BL stories.